And now.
The theory is that an asteroid smashed into Mars 15 million years ago, knocking pieces of the planet into space. About 13,000 years ago, one of those chunks landed at Earth's south pole, carrying a message from Mars.
Ladies and gentlemen, I don't know what you just heard. I'm not sure what you just heard. I don't know what's going through your minds, ladies and gentlemen. But I can tell you this is what I heard.
Beware the astro-zombies. They mutilate, they torture, they kill. Spine-tingling horror, unspeakable shock, and breathless excitement will grip you as you watch living organs ripped from the bodies of voluptuous females, as beating hearts and throbbing brains are transplanted to create the astro-zombies. Cringe in terror, scream in fright as these skull-faced monsters strike blindly at living flesh, and the motion picture screen flows in the blood-drenched wake of the astro-zombies. The beautiful, voluptuous, deadly, vicious Satana, a woman who would stop at nothing to gain control over the astro-zombies, whose creed was kill, kill, kill. John Carradine as the deranged scientist, Wendell Corey as the doctor who opposes him, match wits in this bloody, sadistic, terror-filled, suspense-laden horror film of brutal mutilations and senseless killings as the astro-zombies go berserk and threaten the city with death. Watch it and you die 1,000 deaths. The astro-zombies in color, coming soon to your local theater.
Oh yes. Oh yes, didn't I predict this, ladies and gentlemen? They must convince you that there is life on other planets. But this is the biggest bullshit hoax of all. I mean, this takes the cake, ladies and gentlemen. This comes from NASA. This comes from NASA. NASA, the great hoax perpetrator, the great photograph faker. NASA, the great liar. Oh boy, isn't this something? NASA. Here is an agency, ladies and gentlemen, that we have proven has faked one photograph. One photograph? How about 2 photographs? How about 3 photographs? How about 4 photographs, folks? We've proven that they have faked 4 photographs of the supposed Apollo landing on the moon, of spacewalks by astronauts. How about 5 photographs? 5? That's not enough. How about 10? How about 50? We have proven that they have faked 50 photographs. That's not good enough for you? Well, how about 100? We have proven, beyond any shadow of any doubt, and not just me, and not just Renee, and not just many others, countless thousands of people have proven that NASA has faked literally hundreds, not 100, not 200, not 300, but hundreds. So many they can't be counted are fake, phony, and even the grossest amateur can spot the fake pictures once somebody clues them in. You would be amazed, since I've done the broadcasts on the phony, fake information that NASA has given us about the supposed Apollo moon landings and the NASA official photographs of the Apollo moon landings and the spacewalks by the astronauts and all this other baloney that they've been feeding us for years. You would be amazed at how many people who don't have any background in photography, who don't know anything about space or physics or rocket science or anything else, have gone to their own libraries and pulled out NASA's own publications containing those pictures and have sat there and laughed and laughed and laughed and rolled on the floor once they spotted it with their own eyes. And then they wrote us hundreds and thousands of letters telling us how they have confirmed themselves that NASA's photographs of the Apollo moon landings and of spacewalks and all kinds of things are fake, phony. And now what have we got? Well, we've got this guy named Hoagland. Hoagland. Oh, Mr. Hoagland is trying to convince us that based upon proof found in NASA photographs, there's an ancient city and a face on the planet Mars. Ho, ho, ho. And what has he found? That they all have mathematical relationships that are directly linked to the mystery religion of the fraternal orders of Mystery Babylon, Freemasonry, etc. Wow. And I predicted it all years ago. Predicted every single bit of it. I predicted it on this radio broadcast, and you've all watched it come true. And now, NASA, the great lying space agency, is now coming out to tell you that they found a rock the size of a potato in Antarctica, which proves that there's life on Mars. Well, how did they arrive at that? Well, they say that this little potato-shaped rock came from Mars. How do they know that? Well, they say they've compared it to other meteorites that came from Mars. But nobody has asked them yet, how do they know the other ones came from Mars? It's the biggest bullshit con job hoax, ladies and gentlemen, and it's going right along, and the whole object of it is to perpetuate the creation of a threat from space, for which all humanity will have to unite to oppose that threat. And it will also bring huge sums of money to NASA.
The team is overwhelmed with excitement and joy to have successfully landed another rover on the surface of Mars. When I think back on our human space exploration, I am brought to remember the images that bring us as humans into that process. Well, we can only hope in our efforts to engineer spacecraft and explore our solar system that we might be able to someday contribute yet another iconic image to this collection. And I'm happy to say that I'm hopeful that today we can with this. This is an image of the rover Perseverance slung beneath the descent stage, its propulsion backpack, as it is being lowered to the surface of Mars. You can see the dust kicked up by the rover's engines. We're probably about 2 meters or so above the surface of Mars. We're still checking the timing of this image. It's just hot off the press. See the mechanical bridles that hold the rover underneath the descent stage as 3 straight lines heading down to the top deck. And then the curly electrical umbilical that is taking all of the electrical signals from the descent stage down to the computer inside the belly of the rover. In fact, the ones and zeros that represent this image will travel down that umbilical before it is cut and the rover is left safe on the surface of Mars.
So the first front HazCam image that we received with the cover on, it was still a black and white image, and it looked a lot like what Curiosity looked like when we landed. Low resolution, black and white imagery. Over the next few hours, after we deployed the cover, we were able to actually get down the full resolution color imagery. So this is a picture of with the covers still on. And then if we go to the next one, now we have our somewhat lower resolution, but really high resolution compared to what we've seen before on other previous missions, and now in color. So this is our first color front HazCam image and our first color image from the surface of Mars. This is not a color-corrected product yet, so we'll be continuing to work. Our team has been working up until 5 o'clock this morning, and we'll continue to be working hours like this over the weekend to get data as quickly and accessible out to the public. So this is an incredible achievement, and there's one other image I want to show. So one of the amazing things about these cameras is they're actually, as I mentioned, they're 20 megapixel color cameras, and we can actually basically take a small subset of that image and receive that. So what this image is of the wheel on the surface of Mars. It's the front right wheel, and we have now actually seen what it looks like right underneath the wheels. We have imagery like this that we will be releasing to the Raw Images website probably later today. Our team is just actively working on processing that data and getting that ready. One of the amazing things is now that we have this image data is we can now hand this over to the robotic and science teams so that way we can actually begin to really start the mission.
Hey, NBC News viewers, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down here and click on any of the videos over here to watch the latest interviews, show highlights, and digital exclusives. Thanks for watching.
You're listening to the Hour of the Time. I'm William Cooper. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, we take you to our Conference 97, fourth day, Thursday. Ron Howell. Pay attention. You're going to love it. Everybody who attended thought this was one of the best lectures they heard. It will open your eyes. It will challenge your intellect. It will cause you to ask a lot of questions of people that you always believed blindly before. And it'll make you laugh.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. That was a lot of fun with Jeff on the radio. And I bet you that there was a lot of people out there that really enjoyed that. What you're going to hear now is going to be extremely interesting. You've heard me talk about the Apollo moon shots and the Apollo mission and the Apollo program and all that kind of stuff on many broadcasts. And you've seen all of the NASA footage of that and the special programming on TV of the Apollo program. And the next speaker has done a lot of research on this and put together the results of what he's discovered. And he's going to share that with us for the next 2 hours. He's also a good friend and a major contributor to our effort. This microphone up here is one that he gave us that we could travel with. It has incredible quality because we can't travel with the 2 other microphones that he gave us because they're so fragile and they were made back in the 20s and 30s. And they're the best microphones ever made. You can't duplicate it with solid-state technology. And that's what makes the Hour of Time sound so great. So his name is Ron Howell. He's standing right here. And he's put together the results of his research into the Apollo program and the Apollo moonshots. And he's going to give you the results of that over the next 2 hours. I think you're going to find it extremely interesting. Regardless of what you may believe about what happened, you're going to find what he's going to tell you interesting. So pay attention, take notes, and I don't know if he's going to take questions, but if he does, please hold your questions until the end of his presentation so that he can get all the way through it. And if you can poke holes in this, that's fine. I happen to, I pretty much think I know what he's going to say, and I think I pretty much agree with him. But Mr. Ron Howell.
Thank you, Bill. Well, with a nice introduction like that, I don't want to fall flat on my face, so let's get to it here. This outline, or my presentation is called, Did NASA Fool America? Now, I have to tell you, you don't have to believe what I say. If I were to tell you that we didn't go to the moon, I wouldn't expect you to believe it, but you know that. You deal with intelligence every day, and you know you have to treat it as such. If it's evidence, you have to handle it for what it is. If you agree with it or not, that comes later. Even if I were to tell you that I went to the moon myself, you couldn't accept that. You'd have to look at it as secondhand information, wouldn't you? Okay, now, we are going to discuss facts, and we want to get to the truth, because I appreciate truth. Everything that deals with freedom, has everything to do with truth. Now, let me see here. I was going by my little outline.
And something's happening, too, that you may have noticed. This digital trend with video and photography is kind of scary. It's not scary if you're doing things that you can be very creative with and maybe even help people feel better about themselves. For instance, if you're doing portraiture and you have someone who maybe through the fate of nature or some disease or something, they have maybe a pockmarked face or something that makes them feel insecure. And maybe they don't even want to get a portrait. But you can take a portrait of these people, put that on a computer, and you can take all of those blemishes and things away and make them the way that they would prefer to look. And it makes them feel really good. And so that part of it is nice. When you're being artistic and creating something like artwork, that's nice. When you're doing advertising stuff, and we all know that that's as phony as a $3 bill. Anybody who believes anything that they see in an ad is just wacko anyway. When you're doing fashion work, stuff like that, you can be very creative with digital photography and with video. But when you're doing documentary work, digital is dangerous because the whole history of the event can be changed simply by putting all of the photography or all of the video on a computer, and you can make it look like anything you want. You've all seen Star Wars. That's what you can do with digital. You all saw Alien. That's what you can do with digital. I mean, you saw The Matrix. That's what you can do with digital. You can make things happen that could not possibly and did not happen. And you can present it to the world as a documented piece of history, and stupid people will believe it, rather than say, hey, did you digitize that and put it on a computer? And if they did, you can't believe it, no matter what it is. No matter if they swear up and down and sign 50 million affidavits that they didn't do anything to it, you still can't believe it. And yes, regular photography can be fake too, but not as easily. It's much easier to figure out, a faked photograph if it's done on film than if it's done in a digital mode. What's going to be really dangerous, folks, is if everything switches to digital. You see, because I have this nasty feeling gnawing at the back of my mind that eventually the internet is going to be the conduit hooked through the television in every home, everywhere, where you're going to get radio, you're going to get television, you're going to get email, you're going to get websites, you're going to read books. Oh, when books are digitized, the whole history of the world could be changed. Couldn't it? How about the Bible? Huh? When they digitized the Bible? I mean, even if they changed one word, every day, so that nobody really noticed it, how many days would it take to change the whole meaning of the Bible? Figure that out. Wouldn't take a whole lot of days, I got to tell you. It certainly wouldn't take a whole lot of years, would it? But I have a nasty feeling that the internet was created, and I've told you this before, to be able to control all the information in the world. In other words, people will only see and hear and have access to information that whoever's in control wants them to see and hear and have access to. And since it's all digitized, it can be changed to whatever they want it to be. That's dangerous. It's really weird. Good evening, you're on the air.
Well, hi, Mr. Cooper.
Hi.
Waterford, Virginia, 2017. Cydonia Institute researcher George Haas is combing through satellite images of Mars when he spies a discernible shape. It appears to be the image of another face. Unlike the original so-called face on Mars, discovered in 1976, this face appears in profile, similar to that of the Badlands Guardian.
So in this area called Utopia, in a huge impact crater, is the profiled face that has a beard, a mustache, and he's wearing a helmet that has an avian headdress. When the bearded profile on Mars is compared to the Badlands Guardian, we see the same type of profile. Both incorporate avian iconography. One has a headdress of feathers, the other one is wearing a headdress that incorporates an entire bird. I think the culture that produced these formations on Mars had a direct relationship to the human race.
Is an ancient story being told through geoglyphs that exist both on Earth and on our closest neighboring planet? And if so, what happened to those responsible for writing it?
Perhaps civilization on Mars was destroyed. Or perhaps civilization began on Mars and then moved to Earth. Earth was, in a sense, seeded by a Martian civilization, and that is why we have similar structures on Mars and on planet Earth.
So with the discovery of the face on Mars, is it possible that it's acting as a clue? It's telling us that somewhere here is evidence of a lost civilization that existed on the Red Planet perhaps millions of years ago. That's a very tantalizing possibility, and it's one that I know that every scientist going to Mars wants to answer.
Maybe these geoglyphs were all part of some global memorial that was built by some unknown extraterrestrial culture that has to do with human origins and is telling the story of where we came from and possibly where we may be going.
You have to ask, is there something in common between the people that were making these geoglyphs? And the answer is that they all have similar stories in these earthly civilizations. They're in contact with star beings, celestial beings that came to Earth and are assisting humanity. They lived with us, they interacted with us, then they left.
This is the age of deception. The human body cannot pass through walls or roofs or through windows that are closed. You know, this is all the product of the imagination.
Anyways, they were poking these huge needles into my hips and taking out hip tissue. And they were poking and prodding at my cheeks and all over my body. And in the actual session, there was excruciating pain.
People's willingness to believe something because they want it to be true. I don't know why they would want it to be true.
Perhaps we need some outside universal threat to make us recognize this common bound. I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
What do you think about aliens?
I don't think there are any. At one time, I thought that there were, simply based upon documents that I'd seen while I was attached to the intelligence briefing team, the Commander-in-Chief of the Pacific Fleet. At that time, and even for many years afterwards, I did not believe that the government would use me in that way. I had devoted my whole life to government service. I had been in the Air Force, I was in the Navy, I was a river patrol boat captain in Vietnam. I had proved myself. I had combat ribbons with the V for Valor. There was no doubt of my loyalty to my country. And maybe that's why it was so easy to use me, because I wouldn't doubt that what I saw was real. But over the years, I've done a lot of research. And what I've discovered is there's no proof existing anywhere that extraterrestrials are real, or that have ever visited this planet, or that they exist anywhere in the universe. There is not one shred of evidence anywhere.
We know now, within the early years of the 20th century, this world was being watched closely by intelligences greater than man's.
On October 30th, 1938, the Mercury Radio Network interrupts the music of Ramon Raquello and his orchestra from the Park Plaza Hotel of New York City for a special news bulletin. The infamous War of the Worlds broadcast begins with its terrifyingly real description of an invasion from Mars. And before the night is out, 1 million people will run panicked into the streets.
I'm extremely surprised to learn that a story which has become familiar to children through the medium of comic strips.
After what has been a closely guarded secret for nearly 50 years, Orson Welles' original broadcast turns out to be no mere show business stunt.
Should have had such an immediate and profound effect upon radio listeners.
But instead was a complex psychological warfare test conducted by C.D. Jackson for the Rockefeller Foundation. When the results are compiled nearly 2 years later, they are released to an elite whose names most men will not speak of over a whisper. Among them groups like the Bilderbergers, Trilateral Commission, CFR, and the Federal Reserve.
C.D. Jackson was the equivalent of being the head of the National Security Council in the White House under Eisenhower. He was the chief of psychological warfare.
The breakthrough discovery that the War of the Worlds broadcast was actually a psychological warfare test is key to understanding why experts believe that the Federal Reserve, the Bilderbergers, and other closed exclusive elite groups are pulling the strings that control our societies.
There is lots of evidence, tons of it in fact, that there are a group of people who want us to believe in some extraterrestrial threat from space so that they can cause a world government, bringing together of all the people to resist that external threat. The first time that I saw any reference to that, I was reading some papers from the Carnegie Endowment Fund, and there was a record of a speech. It was a dinner for Viscount Ishii of the Japanese delegation, the Japanese Imperial delegation, in 1917. And John Dewey was one of the speakers. And the first sentence out of his mouth, as I was reading this, almost fell out of my chair, because this was in 1917, and he said the best way to cause all the people of the world to come together in one world government and end war forever would be if we were attacked by some other species from some other planet. And boy, that just clicked with me, and I knew that that this is just another scam. This is the age of deception. There's no doubt about it. And then 8 times during Reagan's administration, he inserted almost the exact same phrase into 8 of his speeches. And it's a scam. That's what I can tell you.
There's also Area 51. You remember there was a great sci-fi movie where there was an alien kept deep under the ground in Area 51? So first I had people go look at the records on Area 51 to make sure there was no alien down there. And people thought that because everybody who works there has to stop about an hour away and put on special clothing and then drive in and out. And that's because a lot of our stealth technology is made there. We know that now, but there are no aliens there.
That's what I can tell you. What they call UFOs, these craft that fly around the sky, are real, but they're not piloted by some little green guy from some other planet. They're owned and operated by the United States of America for one, the Soviet Union for another, probably Great Britain, Canada. I think the first really operable ones were probably manufactured in Western Canada, in the wilderness, in a place especially built to create those machines, like we created the Manhattan Project, and the same kind of secrecy surrounded it. So the technology is real. It's been kept secret, and it's been used to promote this concept that there's an alien threat to this earth. It's just an incredible deception, and I'm just amazed that people have fallen for it in the manner that they have, in the absence of any proof whatsoever. I mean, they cite hearsay as proof.
Well, what about all of the alien abductions?
They're not abductions. They're the results of a tremendously successful and very sophisticated mind control operation, all of which has been in development. Well, they started working on those kinds of things since before World War II.
Electronic mind control research is not new. A scientific milestone in this area came in the 1960s when Dr. Jose Delgado demonstrated remote control over a charging bull. By connecting a radio antenna to electrodes inserted into the bull's brain, Delgado proved that the animal's aggressive impulses could be thwarted by electronically manipulating the bull's muscle reflexes.
Do you realize the fantastic possibilities if from the outside we could modify the inside? Could we give messages to the inside? But the beauty is that now we are not using electrodes.
In recent years, Delgado has shown that the behavior of monkeys can be altered using low-power, pulsating magnetic fields. But in these experiments, there were no antenna implants.
Any function in the brain, emotions, intellect, personality, well, could be perhaps modified by this non-invasive technology.
Delgado's research has so far been limited to animals. But in the Soviet Union, a radio frequency, or RF device, has been used for over 30 years to manipulate the moods of mental patients.
But that's what it is. It's not extraterrestrials coming down. The human body cannot pass through walls or roofs, or through windows that are closed. You know, this is all the product of the imagination and people's willingness to believe something because they want it to be true. I don't know why they would want it to be true. You see, because if it were true, these are not friendly aliens. They're doing some terrible things to people. If I were to kidnap somebody, pass them up through the roof, and take them somewhere, and perform operations on them, and take samples of semen and ova from their, reproductive organs, and plant thoughts in their mind and all this kind of stuff, and then bring them back, guess where I'd be right now? In prison. It's kidnapping. It's criminal. It's a terrible thing.
Anyways, they were poking these huge needles into my hips and taking out hip tissue. And they were poking and prodding at my cheeks and all over my body. And in the actual session, there was excruciating pain.
There's a morbid sense about all this, too, is that people want to be hurt for some reason. I don't understand that. But that certainly is something that somebody needs to look at. Why do people feel that this needs to be real? What in them says, I want to be abducted and abused and kidnapped and raped and all of this stuff against my will? Because they seem to take some kind of satisfaction that this is happening. And nobody's talking about the fact that this is a terrible thing to happen. If I were to do that to you, you wouldn't be too happy, would you? But somehow it's okay if an alien does it? I don't think so. It's all bullshit. It's a lie.
He got abducted by.
And he has some marks on his shins from them.
I think I've been abducted a few times.
Blacks continued to be at the bottom of the heap. The black had made little or no progress up the social scale since slavery had ended in 1865.
Why are you here?